If you don't kill the excuses in 2025, the excuses will kill your dreams. This is not a game anymore. This is do or die. By the end of this message, your mindset won't just be different. It'll be dangerous. Let me tell you something, friend. 2025 doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about your execution. No one's handing out medals for almost trying. It's not about being interested anymore. It's about being committed, fully. No plan B, no soft landing, no backup parachute. This is the year where either you rise or you vanish into mediocrity. Let's get to work. Clarity is power. Confusion is a killer. You can have the best ideas, the most talent, even the deepest hunger. But if you're not clear on where you're going not going anywhere. Think about it. How many people wake up every day tired, stressed, and anxious, not because they're doing too much, but because they're pulled in too many directions? You see, when the mind lacks clarity, the soul loses energy. And when the soul loses energy, the body loses discipline. I once met a man in his 40s who told me, "Jim, I feel stuck. I work hard, but I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere." I asked him one question. "Where are you trying to go?" He paused, blinked, then said, "I'm not sure. I just don't want to be where I am." That's not clarity. That's escape. And escape is not a vision. It's a trap. You can't build a life running from something. You must build it running toward something. You need a target, a flag in the ground, a reason that wakes you up and pulls you forward. Because purpose is not always loud, but confusion is always heavy. Here's what the psychology tells us. The brain is a pattern recognition machine. It thrives on direction, certainty, clarity. When you're vague, the brain defaults to fear. Because ambiguity, that's a threat. It triggers doubt, anxiety, procrastination. You know why some people can move mountains while others can't even move their shoes? It's not because they're stronger. It's because they know where to push. Take Helen Keller, blind and deaf from infancy. But once she understood her mission, her clarity gave her power. She didn't see the world, yet she reshaped it. Or Steve Jobs, fired from his own company. Humiliated, but his clarity never wavered, to put a dent in the universe. And he did. Clarity doesn't mean having all the answers. It means making one bold decision and refusing to look back. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need a today plan. You need to know what you're building and who you're becoming. When you have clarity, you stop negotiating with distractions. You stop overthinking. You stop chasing what doesn't serve you. You look in the mirror and say, "This is what I'm here to do." And nothing, no fear, no failure, no opinion can stop me. So today, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to decide. Decide who you are. Decide what you want. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Because when the mind is clear, the path appears. And when the path appears, your power becomes unshakable. Clarity is power. Confusion? That's how dreams die quietly. Not today. Not for you. If you can't, you must. If you must, you can. You know what that really means? It means the very thing you're avoiding. The very thing you keep postponing, doubting, fearing. That's the door. And here's the truth most never want to hear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your GPS. It's pointing you directly toward your growth zone. Every time you say, "I can't," what you're really saying is, "I won't." And what you won't do becomes a wall between the life you have and the life you want. I met a young woman once, Jessica. She was brilliant, passionate, talented beyond words, but paralyzed when it came to public speaking. She'd say, "I just can't do it. I panic. I freeze. I'm not like those other people." And so year after year, she sat on the sidelines, watched others rise, watched opportunities pass, until one day I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Then that's exactly what you need to do next." She was terrified, but she committed, started small, 2-minute talks, one-on-one practice, then 5 minutes, then 10, then a stage. 6 months later, I watched her deliver a keynote to 300 people. shaking at first, but then she soared. She found power she never knew she had, because she did the things she thought she couldn't do. Psychologically, here's what's happening. When you avoid a fear, your brain learns that fear is in charge. But when you face it, even in small doses, your brain rewires. Confidence isn't born. It's built moment by moment through action. There's a principle called approach versus avoidance. Avoidance creates anxiety. Approach creates strength. The more you approach the thing you fear, the more your identity shifts. You stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I did. This is how leaders are made, not by avoiding fear, but by walking through it. You think successful people aren't scared? Of course they are. They just learned the secret. Fear is not the signal to stop. Fear is the signal to begin. So next time you say, I can't, pause, breathe, then say, which means I must. Because must changes everything. Must removes the back door. Must eliminates the maybe. Must ignites motion. And in motion, you discover you can. If you can't, you must. And when you must, you can. The power was never outside of you. It was buried beneath the fear you were too afraid to challenge. But now you know better. Now you're ready. And the next time fear whispers, you can't, you'll smile and say, watch me. Comfort is a trap disguised as a gift. It feels warm, safe, familiar, like a soft bed that whispers, just 5 more minutes. But if you're not careful, those minutes turn into years. And before you know it, the dreams you once had, they're buried beneath the cushions of your own convenience. See, the problem with comfort is that it never screams. It seduces you slowly. It says, you've worked hard enough. It says, take it easy, you've earned it. And little by little, it lowers your standards until average feels acceptable and greatness starts to feel unnecessary. I once had a friend who was a brilliant writer. He had ideas that could light up minds. But he got a good job, decent pay, safe routine. 10 years went by. He said, one day I'll write that book. But comfort had him, and it never let go. And here's the scary truth. Comfort doesn't steal your life all at once. It drains you drop by drop, until one day you wake up, look in the mirror, and ask, when did I stop trying? Psychologically, this is how the trap works. The brain is wired for survival, not success. It craves certainty, familiarity, patterns, and comfort feeds that craving. But growth lives outside the known. It demands risk. It demands change. And that's why most people don't change. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Because to leave comfort, you have to trade pleasure for pressure. You have to walk into the unknown and trust that what's uncomfortable now will pay dividends later. You ever notice how your greatest breakthroughs never came when things were easy? They came when your back was against the wall, when you were stretched, pushed, pressed, because pressure builds people. Look at nature. Diamonds are formed under stress. Muscles grow from resistance. Even seeds break before they bloom. So why would your potential be any different? If comfort was the answer, we'd all be great by now. But comfort doesn't build legacy. It builds regret. And if you don't believe me, ask someone in their 70s what they regret most. It won't be their failures. It'll be the chances they didn't take, the risks they avoided, the comfort they never questioned. So I'll tell you this, the moment comfort becomes your goal, excellence stops being your standard. Break the pattern. Disrupt the easy. Step into the discomfort. Because that's where growth begins. That's where your courage is hiding. And that's where your future lives. Comfort may look like a gift, but it's a gift that slowly takes more than it gives. You want your power back? Then learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because that's the only place where real change begins. Rejection is not failure. It's filtering. But most people don't see it that way. They treat rejection like a death sentence. They hear no and take it personally, like a verdict on their worth, their talent, their future. But rejection isn't a stop sign. It's a sorting system. It's life's way of saying, not here, not yet, not them. You weren't denied. You were redirected. I remember talking to a young man. He was crushed. applied to a dream job, had all the qualifications. They didn't even call him back. He said, "I guess I wasn't good enough." No, he was just in the wrong room. 6 months later, he got an offer from a different company. Same position, higher pay, better culture. And the first thing he told me was, "Thank God they didn't pick me the first time." See, rejection doesn't mean you're unworthy. It often means you're misplaced. Psychologically, our brains are wired to avoid pain. So when we face rejection, we interpret it as danger. We internalize it. We make it mean something it doesn't. But rejection is data, not a definition. It's like a filter, a process that removes what doesn't fit. So what does fit confine you? Think about it. How many times have you been spared something worse? Because something you wanted didn't work out? You didn't get the gig because it wasn't aligned. You didn't get the relationship because it wasn't right. You didn't get the deal because it wasn't your path. And still, here you are, stronger, smarter, more prepared. Ask any successful person what shaped them most. Not the easy wins, the closed doors, the times they heard. No, Howard Schultz got rejected by over 200 investors before Starbucks became a name. J.K. Rowling, turned down by 12 publishers. Thomas Edison, 1,000 failed attempts before the light bulb. If they had taken rejection as failure, the world would have missed out. Rejection is not a reflection of your value. It's a recalibration of your direction. Here's the shift. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this moving me toward?" Because sometimes rejection clears the stage so the right opportunity can take the spotlight. And sometimes it's life checking how bad you want it, testing your resilience, making sure you're not just interested, but committed. So don't fear rejection. Respect it. Learn from it. Let it refine you, not define you. Because every no is a step closer to the right yes. Every closed door is one less distraction. And every time you get filtered out, you're one filter closer to where you truly belong. Rejection isn't failure. It's alignment. And it's proof that you're still in the game. Self-respect begins with self-accountability. It doesn't start with self-love. It doesn't start with affirmations or confidence. It starts when you tell yourself the truth and act on it. We live in a world where it's easy to point the finger, blame the economy, the algorithm, the people around you. But here's the raw truth. Every time you avoid responsibility, you trade in a piece of your power. And the more you dodge it, the smaller you become in your own eyes. Because deep down, your soul knows when you're lying to yourself, when you're making excuses, when you're playing small and calling it patience. I remember a man who came to me years ago. He said, "Jim, I can't seem to respect myself." I asked him one question. "Do you keep the promises you make to yourself?" He looked down. He already knew the answer. That's where it begins. Accountability is not about shame. It's about alignment. When your actions match your values, your self-respect rises. When they don't, it drops. Every time you say you'll wake up early, but hit snooze. Every time you say you'll eat clean, but make excuses. Every time you swear you'll change, but stay in the same patterns. You chip away at the foundation of who you are. And let me tell you, it's not about perfection. It's about ownership. When you own your mistakes, you grow from them. When you run from them, they grow over you. Psychologically, self-accountability activates a critical loop in the mind, the feedback reward system. When you follow through, your brain gets a dopamine hit. You begin to associate discipline with pleasure, not punishment. That's when transformation happens. But here's the kicker. Nobody can give you self-respect. Not your parents, not your partner, not your boss. It's earned, in private, in silence, when no one's watching. When you choose the hard thing, when you show up even when it's inconvenient, when you say, "This one's on me," instead of blaming the world, that's when you rise. You ever see someone walk into a room and command respect without saying a word? That's not charisma. That's self-accountability, felt in their posture. It's the quiet confidence of someone who keeps their own word. So if you've been doubting yourself lately, if your confidence feels low, your energy feels off, Don't look outside for validation. Look inward for integrity. Ask yourself, where am I out of alignment? And then fix it. Not for applause, not for others, but for you. Because when you hold you accountable, everything changes. You walk taller, speak stronger, live freer. Why? Because self-respect doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being honest. Self-respect begins with self-accountability. And once you've got that, no one can take it from you. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. Now I know that's not what the world will tell you. The world says self-love is bubble baths, cheat days, telling yourself you're enough just the way you are. And sure, there's a place for grace. But let's not confuse comfort with care. Because real self-love, it's not always soft. Sometimes it's hard. It looks like setting the alarm when you'd rather sleep in. Saying no to distractions when your future is calling. Choosing sacrifice over satisfaction. Because you know you're worth more than average. Discipline is love in action. It says, I care enough about who I'm becoming to pay the price today. You don't brush your teeth because it's fun. You do it because you respect yourself. You train your body, not because you always feel like it, but because your health matters. You work on your craft, not for instant reward, but because you know what's on the line if you don't. Discipline is what builds the bridge between who you are now and who you're meant to be. I once met a woman who'd lost 80 pounds. Not with surgery, not with a secret formula. With discipline. She told me, I realized no one was coming to save me. I had to be the person I'd been waiting for. And that's the truth for all of us. Discipline isn't punishment. It's a declaration. I am no longer available for my own sabotage. Psychologically, discipline reprograms your identity. Every time you follow through, your brain logs a message. I'm the kind of person who does what I say. That builds self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of everything. You'll never respect yourself if you can't rely on yourself. And the fastest way to build that reliability? Discipline. Not once in a while. Daily. Discipline is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the talkers from the transformers, the hopeful from the committed. And here's the beautiful twist. The more disciplined you become, the more freedom you gain. Freedom from guilt, from regret, from waking up every day wondering, what if? Because when you love yourself through action, when you invest in yourself when no one's clapping, when you show up even when it's not convenient, that's when you stop needing approval and start becoming unstoppable. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And choosing discipline is choosing you, your growth, your goals, your greatness. So if you're looking for self-love, don't start with what feels good. Start with what's right for your future. Because discipline is not restriction. It's devotion. And there is no greater act of love than becoming the person you were born to be. Environment is stronger than willpower. Now, you might think you're strong. You've got goals, discipline, determination. But let me tell you, if your environment is working against you, it will win. Not because you're weak, but because no one outruns their environment for long. You can have the strongest in the room, but if the room is full of distraction, negativity, and people who don't believe, eventually, it breaks you down. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when. I knew a young man once. Bright, driven, passionate, but every night, he hung out with friends who laughed at his goals. They called him too intense, mocked his dreams. He told me, I just try to ignore it. But 2 years later, he stopped dreaming. Why? Not because he lost a fire, but because they kept pouring water on it. See, your environment is like soil. Even the best seed dies in toxic ground. And your willpower? That's the seed. It needs the right place to grow. Psychologists call it choice architecture. You shape your behavior by shaping your surroundings. Want to read more? Leave the book on the pillow, not the shelf. Want to eat healthier? Remove junk food from your house. Want to level up your mindset? Start spending time with people who make you rise. Your willpower shouldn't have to fight every day just to survive. It should be supported, strengthened, reinforced by your environment. I once heard someone say, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But I'll go further. You're the product of everything that's around you. Your space, your sounds, your schedule, your home, your habits, your circle. Look around. What in your environment is pulling you forward? And what is silently pulling you back? Because here's the truth. Success is not just about effort. It's about alignment. You put a lion in a zoo, it loses its hunger. You put it back in the wild, and it remembers who it is. Sometimes it's not your discipline that needs work. It's your surroundings that need clearing. Make your environment a mirror of your goals. Clean your space. Protect your peace. Distance from what drains you. Draw near to what fuels you. You can't control every influence, no. But you can choose what you allow close. Because you're not just building habits. You're building the conditions that make those habits stick. Willpower is your start. Environment is your strategy. So if you want change that lasts, don't just look inward. Look around you. Because success doesn't just come from within. It grows from the ground you're standing on. Decision is the doorway to destiny. Every day, you stand at the threshold of your future. You're faced with choices, big and small, and those choices, they carve the path you walk. They shape who you are and who you'll become. Let me tell you something. It's not the circumstances that define you. It's the decisions you make within those circumstances. Take a moment to think. What would your life look like today if you made one different decision in the past? What if you chose the harder path? What if you said yes when you usually said no? What if you decided to stay when it felt easier to walk away? Every decision is a fork in the road. And those roads, no matter how subtle, lead you to completely different destinations. I remember hearing a story about a man who had two offers on the table. One was safe, comfortable. It promised a steady income. The other, risky, uncertain, but it was a chance to live out his dream. The decision was clear to him. He took the risk. That man became one of the most successful entrepreneurs of his time. The safe choice would have kept him stuck in mediocrity. Psychologically, this is how the mind works. We are creatures of habit, driven by the comfort of the familiar. But transformation only happens when we make decisions that disrupt our current reality. Every time you make a bold choice, whether it's moving to a new city, taking a risk in business, or standing up for your values, you shift the very energy of your life. You break free from the routine that keeps you tethered to the past. You step into the unknown, and in doing so, you step into possibility. One of the most defining decisions I ever made was when I decided to stop blaming my circumstances. Instead of looking at what I didn't have, I looked at what I could do with what I had. It was a shift that changed everything. Because I stopped waiting for things to change for me, I became the change. The truth is, no one is going to make decisions for you. No one is going to tell you to go for that promotion, to leave that toxic relationship, to write that book. That's on you. And if you keep putting off the hard decisions, you're delaying your future. Your destiny doesn't happen by accident. It's created one decision at a time. And here's the kicker. Most of us wait for the perfect moment. We wait for all the stars to align, the risk to feel smaller, the doubts to disappear. But the truth? That perfect moment doesn't exist. What exists is now. What exists is a decision you make in this moment. And it will either push you forward or keep you stuck. So, stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for signs from the universe. Because your destiny is in your hands, and the key is already within you. Every decision you make is a step towards becoming who you were meant to be. And the moment you decide, you unlock the door to everything that's waiting for you. Excuses are just stories you've outgrown. Think about it. Every excuse you've ever made at its core is a narrative. It's a story you tell yourself to justify why you didn't do something, why you didn't follow through, why you're not where you said you'd be. And let's be clear, these stories are not the truth. They are just stories. Excuses we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort, to protect our egos, to maintain the illusion that we're doing the best we can. But here's the thing. The more you grow, the more you realize how outdated these stories are. What you once accepted as truth becomes nothing more than a lie you've outgrown. I've seen people say, I don't have time, and I've watched them waste hours scrolling through social media. I've heard, I don't have the money, yet they're quick to buy the latest gadgets, the newest clothes, the things they don't need. The truth is, you make time for what matters. You spend money on what you prioritize. And all those excuses? They're just stories that no longer serve you. Psychologically, excuses are a defense mechanism. They shield us from facing uncomfortable truths, that the reason we didn't act wasn't because of time, money, or circumstances. It was because we chose not to. The real question is, are you willing to face the truth? Are you ready to put aside the stories you've been telling yourself? I've worked with countless individuals who faced tremendous odds. People who didn't have the perfect background. People who didn't have all the resources. Yet they still succeeded because they stopped using their past as an excuse to stay stuck. One of my favorite stories is about a man named Thomas Edison. When he was a child, he was told by his teachers that he was too stupid to learn anything. Can you imagine? He could have accepted that as truth. He could have let that story dictate his future. But instead, Edison decided to write his own story. He failed 1,000 times to invent the light bulb, but every failure was simply another chapter in his journey. He didn't have excuses. He had determination. Every time you make an excuse, you're stopping your own progress. You're putting yourself in a box that you can't grow out of. But the moment you stop making excuses, you start rewriting your story. And that's where the magic happens. So, what's the excuse you've been holding on to? What's the story that's kept you stuck in your current place? It's time to outgrow it. It's time to put that old story down and create a new one. One where you take full responsibility for your choices, your actions, and your future. You don't need to explain why you haven't gotten where you want to go anymore. You just need to stop making excuses and start taking action. Because the moment you stop making excuses is the moment you unlock your true potential. And when that happens, your future becomes unstoppable. The only plan is all in. Let me ask you something. How many times have you said, "I'll try," or "I'll give a shot," and then wonder why you never truly saw results? Let's face it, the world doesn't reward half effort. Success doesn't come to those who are kinda committed. It comes to those who are all in. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, I can't go all in. Maybe you're scared of failing. Maybe you don't trust yourself enough. Or maybe, just maybe, you've been burned before and you're playing it safe. But here's the truth. Playing it safe never works. You cannot expect extraordinary results with ordinary effort. Think about some of the greatest success stories in history. Steve Jobs. He didn't just try to revolutionize technology. He went all in. He didn't just work hard. He poured everything into his vision, sacrificed everything for it, and refused to settle for mediocrity. Look at Elon Musk. He didn't start with billions in the bank. He invested everything he had into his companies. Even when the odds were stacked against him, he risked it all. And that's why he's changing the world. Psychologically, going all in taps into something powerful inside you, a level of commitment and drive that half-hearted efforts simply don't touch. When you're all in, you align every part of your being with your goal. You give yourself no other option but success. When you're all in, every setback becomes a lesson, not a failure. Every failure becomes fuel, not a reason to quit. And every obstacle you face, you look at it and say, I'm not stopping until I break through. I remember when I started my journey. I had nothing but the belief that I could make something of myself. No clear path, no guarantees. But I knew this. I was all in. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't sit around waiting for the perfect conditions. I just showed up every day with a single focus. I was going to make it, no matter what it took. You see, when you go all in, the universe has a funny way of supporting you. It's as if the world aligns itself with your commitment. But when you're only half in, when you're hedging your bets, the universe responds with hesitation. The reason most people don't succeed is simple. They're not fully committed. They're too busy holding on to safety nets, afraid to take the leap. But the moment you decide to go all in, you put everything on the line. You give yourself no exit strategy, no easy way out. And that's when the magic happens. So I'm asking you today, what are you holding back? What part of your potential are you still unwilling to commit to? Because until you go all in, you'll never know what's truly possible. There's no room for maybe in greatness. There's no place for someday. The only plan is all in. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is now. The only plan is all in. And when you commit fully, you'll unlock your true potential. You're not here to survive. You're here to dominate. No more almosts. No more what ifs. No more waiting. This is 2025, the year of no return. So decide now, will you rise or will you regret? Because when it's do or die, the ones who decide to do are the ones who never have to die with regret. Now go, build a mind they can't break, live a life they can't ignore, and become a force they can't stop.